All right, in this video, I want to go through week 4. It's been a very busy week. I've covered a lot of material in this week, and here's what you need to be up to speed with. First, simple linear regression. I introduced the idea of regression analysis through simple linear regression. You're going to notice that most of your assessment, most of your project this week are going to deal with simple linear regression material. It's important to learn the basics of that. So that's the emphasis. I did more than that, but that's the emphasis of the week. So simple linear regression, from hypothesizing the model, estimating the betas, getting the computer printouts and being able to interpret those betas, the slope, the y-intercept, knowing when to interpret the y-intercept, when not to, be able to state the slope interpretation, be able to state your 4 regression assumptions. As part of that, there's an reference to a variation or a variance. I want you to be able to interpret the standard deviation that we get from the printout. Do it in the context of a simple linear regression analysis. Test the model. There's a t-test on the beta 1 term. You should know how to set that up, be able to specify the null and the alternative, get the printout, be able to conduct that test, know what to do with the p-value. Is it one-tailed or is it two-tailed? Do you split it in half? Do you not split it in half? Be able to interpret the coefficient of correlation if it's given to you, and the coefficient of determination, which is r squared. And then use the model for both estimation and prediction. You should definitely know the difference between y and e of y. Y is an individual value, e of y is the mean of all y values. And in regression, when you're talking about y or e of y, there's a specific value of x that you're interested in. So that's a simple linear regression material. Then I went ahead and introduced the multiple regression ideas. And hopefully what you saw, what you learned, was that things don't change all that much. Our models are going to get more complicated. And then to make matters worse, we made it more complicated. We looked at 3 different types of model terms. We looked at interaction terms, and they're the ones that brought the non-parallel relationships into the model. We looked at quadratics, which allowed us to move from lines to curves. And then we also talked about qualitative variables, the ways that we can model categories, and we use dummy variables to do that. The key now is, can we work with all these things? And then the last stuff that we did is we saw how all those terms combine into forming a complete second order model, which allows for basically craziness to ensue. We're going to allow for quadratics, we're going to allow for interaction, we're going to put the qualitative variables in there, and so we get lots of different possibilities. And then the last 2 topics that we talked about, we tested the model. We looked at 3 different tests: a global F, a partial F, a best subset test, and a t-test. The best subset and the partial F are the same, so there's 3 different tests: test the whole model, test a part, test a single term. And then the last thing I did was game planning your testing. How do you know what to test? Let's come up with a what-if scenario. And that's what I ended with. And I'm not going to ask you a ton of questions on the quiz, and definitely not going to do your project with the game planning. That's going to be more on your next project. But that's a lot of material. That's a lot of material. And that's what you're responsible for. We're going to be picking up with these guys here in the next section, and it's going to involve testing the model, because all the way through that game plan you got different tests that you're conducting. So all these things here are tied together. I'm going to be asking you to find your best model in multiple regression. For now, concentrate more on the simple linear, but get your tools down, get your skills down, because we're going to run with this next week. So take a look, see what you think, and you know how to get hold of me if you have questions. So long.